Long before cities rose from the earth, before writing carved meaning into clay, human hands were already reaching toward eternity. They gathered stones from riverbeds and mountainsides, each one chosen with purpose we can only begin to imagine. Not just monuments to the dead, but messages written in rock that would outlast empires and ages. What if these standing stones were humanity's first attempt to speak across the abyss of time itself? The world then was colder, harsher, wrapped in the tail end of the Great Ice Age. Glaciers still clung to northern mountains, their slow retreat carving valleys that would become sacred ground. Our ancestors moved through landscapes of tundra and sparse forest, following herds beneath skies brilliant with stars. And in those endless nights, someone looked up and wondered how to make something that would never be forgotten. The oldest standing stones reach back 5,000 years, some even older, planted deep in European soil. Imagine the labor required to move a single megalith, some weighing more than 50 tons of solid rock. No wheels, no metal tools, only rope and wood and the coordinated strength of dozens of human bodies. They dragged these stones across miles of rough terrain, guided by knowledge passed down through generations in firelight stories. Each stone had to be lifted upright, balanced perfectly in a pit dug with antler picks and bare hands. One mistake could crush lives beneath tons of falling rock. Yet they persisted with unwavering determination and skill. Why would people who struggle daily for survival invest such enormous effort in stones that served no practical purpose? The answer lies not in utility but in something deeper, something that separates us from every other creature. We alone among Earth's children feel the weight of time and seek to leave marks that transcend our brief existence. These stones were calendars tracking the sun's journey across seasons, marking solstices with geometric precision that still astonishes astronomers today. They were gathering places where communities came together to celebrate harvests, mourn losses, and bind themselves to something larger. They were territorial markers declaring to neighboring tribes that this land had been claimed and consecrated by human will. But perhaps most profoundly, they were stories told in the language of stone and sky and starlight. Each stone circle, each alignment, encoded knowledge about the cosmos that took generations of careful observation to accumulate and preserve. The people who built these monuments understood that stone endures, where flesh and memory fade into dust and silence. Can you feel the weight of their ambition, reaching across 50 centuries to touch your mind right now? At Cardiff in Brittany, more than 3,000 standing stones march in parallel rows across the landscape, like a petrified army. They stretch for miles, their purpose still debated, their arrangement suggesting astronomical knowledge we're only beginning to fully comprehend and appreciate. At Stonehenge, massive sarsen stones were transported from quarries 20 miles distant, then shaped with stone hammers into precise geometric forms. The blue stones came from Wales, carried somehow across 140 miles of hills and rivers and treacherous terrain. Recent excavations reveal that Stonehenge was built and rebuilt over 1,500 years, each generation adding to their ancestors' vision. It was a living monument, constantly evolving, its meaning shifting like shadows cast by stones at different hours of the day. The people who gathered there came from across Britain, bringing their dead for cremation and ceremonies we can only glimpse through fragments. Feasting evidence shows massive gatherings where pigs were slaughtered and consumed, communities united in ritual meals beneath the monument's shadow. What songs did they sing as they raised those stones? What prayers whispered into the earth before each megalith was set? In Orkney, the ring of Brodgar stands on a narrow strip of land between two lochs. 60 stones originally forming a perfect circle. 27 remain standing today, sentinels weathered by 5,000 years of wind and rain in endless northern winters. Nearby, the stones of Stennis are even older, among the earliest stone circles in the British Isles, planted in soil still frozen from glacial retreat. These monuments were not built by primitive savages struggling in darkness, but by sophisticated societies with deep understanding of mathematics and astronomy. They had no written language as we understand it, yet they encoded complex information in stone arrangements that could be read by those who knew the key. The summer solstice sun rises precisely aligned with certain stones, its first rays touching specific points in choreographed light and shadow. Lunar cycles were tracked with equal precision. 18-year patterns recorded in stone positions that required generations of patient observation to document fully. This was science before the word existed. Astronomy practiced with naked eyes and brilliant minds under skies undimmed by artificial light. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to stand among those stones at dawn? On the longest day, the stones themselves tell stories written in their substance. Each type of rock carrying meaning beyond mere material properties and physical characteristics. Granite for strength and permanence, sandstone for workability, volcanic rock for its connection to Earth's molten heart and primordial fire. Some stones show cup marks and spiral carvings, abstract symbols whose meanings have been lost to the silence of vanished cultures. These petroglyphs might represent stars, water, the sun's path, or concepts we can no longer translate from their visual language. What if each symbol was a word in a stone dictionary, and we've forgotten how to read the sentences they formed? The effort required to create even one stone circle staggers the imagination. When you consider the tools and technology available then, experiments with replica stones show that moving a 10-ton megalith requires at least 70 people, pulling in coordinated rhythm for days. Lifting at a upright demands precise engineering, ropes positioned exactly right, the pit dug to perfect depth and angle for stability. One miscalculation, and the stone falls wrong, crushing workers, destroying months of labor, forcing the community to begin the entire process again. Yet across Europe, thousands of these monuments rose from the earth, each one a testament to human determination and collective will. Not just X, but Y. These weren't just stones, but libraries written in rock, preserving knowledge that couldn't yet be captured in written words. The societies that built them were complex, hierarchical, capable of organizing massive labor projects that required sophisticated planning and resource management. They had leaders who could inspire hundreds to work toward goals they might not live to see completed themselves. They had astronomers who spent lifetimes tracking celestial patterns, passing their knowledge to apprentices who would continue the observations for generations. They had engineers who understood leverage, friction, and the behavior of materials under stress through practical experimentation and accumulated wisdom. And they had storytellers who wove these stones into narratives that gave them meaning. Beyond their physical presence in the landscape, the stones became characters in myths, transformed warriors or dancing maidens frozen by divine punishment or blessing into eternal stone. These stories served as mnemonic devices, encoding practical information about the stone's purposes in memorable narratives that could survive oral transmission. When metalworking arrived, the stone circles were already ancient, mysterious even to the Bronze Age peoples who inherited the landscape. They added their own burials, their own offerings, treating the monuments with reverence for ancestors whose names had been forgotten, but whose works remained. The Iron Age Celts found them and called them works of giants or gods. Unable to imagine how humans alone could have accomplished such feats, Romans marched past them with barely a glance, focused on their own empire's glory, dismissing these stones as barbaric relics of primitive peoples. Medieval Christians sometimes tried to destroy them, seeing pagan power in their enduring presence. Yet most stones proved too massive to topple easily. Others were Christianized, crosses carved into their surfaces. Churches built deliberately nearby to sanctify and claim these ancient sacred spaces for new faith. Through all these ages, the stones stood, silent witnesses to the rise and fall of cultures that came after their builders. What if the stones could speak and tell us everything they've witnessed across 5,000 years of human history and transformation? Modern archaeology reveals that these monuments were part of vast landscape-scale projects, connected by pathways and sightlines spanning miles of territory. The stones weren't isolated curiosities, but nodes and networks of meaning, each one part of a larger cosmological map written across the land. Recent discoveries show that some stone circles were preceded by wooden henges, temporary structures that served as templates for permanent stone replacements. The transition from wood to stone marked a fundamental shift in how these societies thought about time and permanence and legacy. Wood rots and returns to earth within generations, but stone endures, carrying messages forward through millennia to descendants who might otherwise forget. The builders knew they were creating something that would outlast their grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren, reaching toward a future they could barely imagine. And here we stand in that future they dreamed of, trying to decode the messages they left in arrangements of stone and sky. Modern technology allows us to see patterns invisible to earlier researchers. Laser scanning revealing precise alignments and mathematical relationships between monuments. We've discovered that many stone circles incorporate sophisticated geometry. Circles that aren't quite circles, but elegant ellipses calculated with remarkable precision. The builders understood Pythagorean relationships centuries before Pythagoras, applying mathematical principles through practical experimentation rather than abstract proof. DNA analysis of bones found near the monuments shows that people traveled hundreds of miles to participate in their construction and associated ceremonies. These were not local projects but regional or even national undertakings, drawing communities together in shared purpose and collective identity formation. The stones became focal points for cultural unity, places where diverse groups could gather and recognize themselves as part of something larger. Yet around 4,000 years ago, the stone building tradition ended. The knowledge and motivation that drove it fading as societies transformed and priorities shifted. New religions, new technologies, new ways of thinking about the world emerged, and the stones were left to weather in silence and solitude. Their builders' names are lost forever, their individual stories dissolved into the anonymity of deep time and collective memory's erosion. But their works remain, and in those works, we glimpse something essential about what it means to be human across all ages. We are the species that looks at mortality and responds by building monuments that will outlive us by millennia or more. We are the storytellers who inscribe our narratives not just in fragile paper, but in the most permanent materials we can find. Standing among those ancient stones today, you can still feel the presence of the hands that shaped and placed them with such care. The same stars they watched still wheel overhead, following the same paths they tracked with such patient devotion across countless generations. The same sun rises at the same angle on the summer solstice, its light touching the same stones in the same ancient choreography. We are connected to those builders across the abyss of time by something stronger than blood, or language or culture itself. We share the fundamental human need to create meaning, to mark our presence, to reach beyond the brief span of individual existence. The standing stones are mirrors reflecting our own deepest aspiration back at us. Across 5,000 years of separation and change, they remind us that we are part of a story much larger than ourselves, a narrative written in stone and starlight. Every generation adds its chapter to that story, building on what came before, reaching toward futures we can barely imagine or predict. What will we leave behind that will still stand 5,000 years from now? Speaking to people we cannot begin to envision, the stones ask us this question every time we stand among them, patient and eternal in their silent interrogation of our choices. They are proof that human hands, working together with vision and determination, can create works that transcend time itself and touch eternity. The storytellers who raised those stones knew something we sometimes forget in our hurried modern age, rushing forward without reflection or pause, that the most important stories aren't told in words alone, but in the enduring language of stone and sky and the eternal dance of starlight above.